Captain Huyanwu pressed his photosynthetic palm against the warm biometal wall of the starlit dream, feeling the ship's pain through his fingertips. The living vessel trembled like a wounded animal, its crystalline hull crackling with spiderweb. Fractures that leaked their precious oxygen into the cold void of space. "Status report, Minho," he called to his science officer. Oh, he already knew the answer would be grim. Minho's leaf-like appendages drooped as he read the biodisplays. The young Valkyrie's bark-like skin had turned a sickly yellow, a clear sign of stress among their plant-based species. "Captain, the neural pathways to our main engines are completely severed. Whatever that cosmic storm did to us, it burned out our ship's nervous system." The starlit dream had been humanity's first glimpse into how different alien technology could be. Unlike the cold metal ships that humans built, the Valkyrie grew their vessels from massive space trees, nurturing them in orbital gardens until they were ready for the stars. The ships were alive, breathing, feeling creatures that bonded with their crews. And life support? Huyanwu asked, though he could already taste the growing staleness in the air. "The ship is trying to heal itself, but without the main biocore, she's slowly dying. We have maybe 6 rotations before the air becomes toxic," Minho reported, his voice barely above a whisper, around them. The rest of the research crew worked frantically at their stations. Dr. Suzanne tended to the ships. Wounded biocircuits, her healing touch coaxing a few more minutes of life from the dying systems. Engineer Wan Bin crawled through the ship's arteries, trying to splice together severed neural pathways with emergency biopaste. They had been so close to a breakthrough. Their mission was to study the rare cosmic blossoms that bloomed only in the deepest parts of space, flowers that could grow between stars and feed on solar radiation. The discovery could have revolutionized agriculture across the galaxy.
Dead.
They had flown straight into an electromagnetic storm that their peaceful research vessel was never designed to survive. "Captain," called Communications Officer the Jin. "From her station, I'm detecting Federation patrol routes approximately 4 light-years from our position. If we send a distress signal, they should reach us within 3 rotations." Huyanwu nodded grimly. The Galactic Federation was known for their quick response to emergencies, especially when it involved their member species.
Oh.
The Valkyrie had been part of the Federation for over 2 centuries, contributing their knowledge of biological sciences and agricultural techniques to the peaceful alliance. With trembling fingers, he activated the Universal Distress Beacon. The device hummed to life, its bioluminescent panels casting an eerie green glow across the darkened bridge. "This is Captain Huyanwu of the Valkyrie research vessel Starlit Dream," he spoke into the transmitter. "We are experiencing critical system failure at coordinates 847 Deltanine. Life support failing. We are peaceful researchers requesting immediate assistance. Please, if anyone can hear this, we have families waiting for us at home." The message began to pulse outward into the void, a desperate cry for help racing across the star systems at the speed of light. Huyanwu closed his eyes and whispered an ancient Valkyrie prayer to the great tree, hoping that somewhere in the darkness, friendly ears would hear their plea. What he didn't know was that their signal would never reach the Federation patrol. Ships 3,000 light-years away, on the heavily fortified rim world of New Busan. Lieutenant Daehyun was having the worst night shift of his military career. The young human communications officer had been monitoring deep space frequencies for 6 hours straight, listening to nothing but cosmic static and the occasional automated beacon from passing cargo. Ships. New Busan was humanity's furthest outpost, a fortress world bristling with weapons and sensors, built to guard against the unknown dangers that lurked beyond mapped space. The planet's surface was covered in massive military installations. Their gun batteries pointed toward the dark areas of the galaxy where no friendly signals ever came. Daehyun took another sip of his lukewarm coffee and rubbed his tired eyes. The monitoring station was quiet except for the steady hum of computers and the distant rumble of patrol ships launching from the surface below. Most of his fellow officers were either sleeping or playing cards in the rec room. Someone had to listen to the void. That's when the distress signal hit, its console like a thunderbolt. The alien transmission tore through the static with such force that Dayhine nearly fell backward out of his chair. Coffee splashed across his uniform as warning lights flashed red across every screen in the room. The automatic translation system struggled to process the strange alien language, converting the desperate plea into choppy human words. "Commander." "Biorum," he shouted, his voice cracking with adrenaline. "We've got an emergency transmission from unknown aliens." Commander Borum burst through the door so fast that Dayhine wondered if she had been waiting just outside. The veteran officer's face was hard as steel, her eyes already calculating threats and responses. In the brutal expansion of human space, distress calls were rarely what they seemed. "Play it back," she ordered, leaning over Dayhine's console. The alien captain's voice filled the room, translated into human words but carrying an unmistakable tone of desperation and fear. Borum listened intently, her expression growing darker with each word. "Unknown species, coordinates beyond our patrol zone, claiming system failure," she muttered, her mind already racing through possibilities. Could be genuine, could be bait. "For an ambush? Ma'am, what should we do?" Dayhine asked. BORAM was already moving toward the emergency communication array. In human space, you didn't take chances. Pirates and slavers had learned to fake distress calls, luring rescue ships into carefully planned traps. But real or not, if there were innocents in danger, humanity would respond with overwhelming force. "Alert Fleet Command immediately," she ordered. "Tell Admiral Junho we have a possible Code Red situation requiring immediate military intervention. Unknown alien vessel claiming distress at coordinates 847 Deltanine. Recommend full battle group response." As Dayhine's fingers flew across the communication controls, sending the alert racing toward the massive military fleet stationed in the New Busan system. Neither human understood the terrible irony of what they had just set in motion. The Velkari had sent their plea hoping for gentle rescue from peaceful Federation ships. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous, the protective instincts of a species that had clawed its way to the stars through a universe that had tried to kill them at every step. Humanity was coming to help, and they were bringing enough firepower to level a small moon. The bridge of the UES Iron Phoenix hummed with deadly purpose as Admiral Junho watched the final ships of Task Force Thunder drop out of hyperspace. Each vessel that materialized sent ripples of displaced energy across the void, their massive hulls gleaming with weapon ports and armor plating that had been tested in a dozen brutal conflicts. Junho's weathered hands gripped the command rail. As he surveyed his fleet, the Iron Phoenix was a monster of human engineering. 2 kilometers of reinforced steel and ceramic composite, bristling with enough weapons to level a city. Her sister ships formed a perfect combat formation around her, the heavy cruisers Storm's Edge and Burning Resolve, the fast destroyers Lightning Strike and Steel Fury, and 7 more vessels that represented the cutting edge of human military technology. Admiral Captain Soyoung reported from her position at the tactical station. "All ships confirm ready status. Hyperspace drives are charged, weapon systems are hot, and marine assault teams are standing by." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency around them. Lieutenant Sungmin monitored long-range sensors, his screens showing the empty space ahead where the alien distress signal originated. Chief Petty Officer Hae-Won coordinated with the fleet's fighter squadrons, their pilots already strapped into their cockpits and ready to launch at a moment's notice. "Time to target?" Junho asked, his scarred face illuminated by the tactical displays. 47 minutes at current speed, sir," Soyoung replied. "We'll drop out of hyperspace in attack formation, just in case this is an ambush." Junho nodded grimly. The old warrior had learned never to trust an easy situation. During humanity's expansion into the galaxy, they had encountered species that specialized in deception, the Korthok slavers who mimicked distress calls to lure rescue ships into their nets, the Vex pirates who used civilians as human shields, and worse things that lurked in the dark spaces between stars. "Signal the fleet," he commanded. "Standard rescue protocol, we go in hard and fast. If there are hostiles holding prisoners, we hit them before they can harm the innocents. If it's a trap, we spring it on our terms." The communication array crackled to life as his orders went out to the other ships. Across the fleet, Marine commanders briefed their assault teams. Weapons officers ran final checks on their targeting systems, and fighter pilots received their attack vectors. "Sir," interrupted Communications Officer Taman, "we're getting some strange readings from the distress signal. The language patterns don't match any known hostile species. Might actually be legitimate. Might be Junho." "Agreed. But in my experience, the galaxy doesn't give you easy answers. We go in ready for anything." The Iron Phoenix shuddered slightly as her massive hyperspace engines pushed the fleet faster through the twisted dimensions of subspace. Behind them, the other 11 ships matched their acceleration, maintaining perfect formation even as they traveled faster than light. Meanwhile, 3,000 light-years away, the dying Valkyrie research vessel Starlit Dream drifted helplessly through space. The ship's bioluminescent corridors flickered weakly as its living systems struggled to maintain basic functions. On the bridge, sensor operator Kylara stared at her displays in growing horror. Her photosynthetic skin patches, normally a healthy green, had turned pale yellow with fear. The readings on her screen seemed impossible, energy signatures so massive that they dwarfed anything in the Valkyrie database. "Captain Hyan Wu," she called, her voice barely steady. "I'm detecting massive hyperspace distortions approaching our position. Whatever's coming, it's big." Captain Hyan Wu moved to her station, his bark-like skin creaking with worry. The Valkyrie had been a peaceful species for thousands of years, their technology focused on growth and healing rather than destruction. Their sensors could detect the approaching fleet, but they had no frame of reference for what they were seeing. "How big?" he asked. 12 separate vessels, sir. Each one registers energy output equivalent to our entire home colony. They're moving incredibly fast." Science Officer Minho looked up from his failing biodisplays. "Captain, those readings can't be right. No ship needs that much power unless... Unless what?" Hyan Wu demanded. "Unless they're warships," Minho whispered. "Massive ones." The bridge fell silent except for the labored breathing of their dying ship. Dr. Sujin stopped her work on the biocircuits and stared at the tactical display. Engineer Wonbin crawled out of the maintenance tunnel, his face streaked with the ship's biofluid. "Warships? Communications officer?" the Jin asked. "But we sent a distress call to the Federation. It would send medical vessels, research ships, maybe a small patrol craft." Kylar's patches flickered brighter with terror. "I'm getting clearer readings now. These aren't Federation ships. The energy signatures are completely different, using some kind of artificial fusion technology, not biosystems." "Who builds ships like that?" Dr. Sujin asked. Conquer's Hyan Wu said grimly. "A species that see the galaxy as something to be taken by force." The reality of their situation began to sink in. They had sent out a distress call hoping for rescue, but instead they had attracted the attention of something far worse. The approaching fleet was powerful enough to destroy their entire homeworld, and it was heading straight for their helpless research vessel. "Are they coming to help?" "Us?" Minho asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "Look at those readings," Han Wu replied, pointing at the tactical display. 12 massive warships, bristling with weapons, approaching at maximum speed. They're not coming to rescue us." Engineer Wonbin wiped biofluid from his hands. "Maybe they haven't noticed us yet. If we shut down all systems, go completely dark." "Too late," Kylara interrupted, already locked onto our distress beacon. "And sir, they're slowing down. They'll be here in less than an hour." The bridge crew exchanged terrified glances. They had heard stories of species that treated other life forms as resources to be exploited. Slavers who captured peaceful researchers. Pirates who stripped ships for valuable technology. And worse things that the galaxy's peaceful civilizations whispered about in fearful tones. "What do we do, Captain?" the Jin asked. Hyan Wu stared at the approaching energy signatures on the tactical display. 12 vessels, each one a monument to violence and destruction, racing toward their dying ship. He thought of his crew, young researchers who had joined the mission to study beautiful cosmic flowers. It's not to face the dark realities of galactic warfare. "We prepare for the worst," he said quietly. "And we hope that whatever they want from us, they'll be satisfied with our research data and leave us alive." But deep in his heart, Captain Hyanwu knew that peaceful species rarely survived encounters with the kind of civilization that built fleets like the one approaching them. The Valkyrie had lived for millennia, believing that the galaxy was fundamentally good, that intelligence naturally led to compassion and cooperation. They were about to learn that the universe was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The two fleets raced toward each other through the void, one carrying humanity's determination to protect the innocent, the other carrying the Valkyrie's growing certainty that their peaceful existence was about to come to a violent end. Neither side understood that they were about to become part of the galaxy's greatest misunderstanding. Space rippled and tore, as 12 human warships burst out of hyperspace like predators emerging from a nightmare. The Iron Phoenix led the formation, her massive bulk casting shadows across the smaller vessels as they materialized in perfect attack positions around the dying Valkyrie ship. Admiral Junho watched the tactical display as his fleet settled into standard rescue formation. The destroyers Steel Wind and Lightning Strike took flanking positions while the heavy cruisers formed a protective wall. To human eyes, this was textbook procedure: arrive with overwhelming force, secure the area, then assess the situation. "We have visual on the distressed vessel," reported Lieutenant Sungmin from the sensor station. His voice carried a note of confusion. "It's unlike anything in our database." On the main view screen, the starlit dream appeared in all its alien beauty. The Valkyrie ship looked more like a living creature than a spacecraft. Its crystalline hull pulsing with faint bioluminescent patterns. Delicate branch-like structures extended from its sides, some of them clearly damaged and leaking atmosphere into space. "By the void," whispered Captain So-young. "It's beautiful. And it's dying." Admiral Junho studied the alien vessel carefully. His experienced eyes could see the signs of critical damage: the cracked hull, the failing energy readings, the desperate attempts at emergency repairs. But his military training also noted something else. The ship was completely unarmed. "All stations maintain alert status," he commanded. "Open communication channels on all frequencies." The bridge's communication array hummed to life as it boosted, the Admiral's voice across every possible frequency. His words carried the authority of decades spent commanding human fleets in hostile space. "Unknown vessels, this is Admiral Junho of the Terran Defense Force. Identify yourselves and state your situation. We received your distress call and are here to provide assistance." To human ears, it was a straightforward rescue protocol. To the Valkyrie translation systems, struggling to process the alien language and military terminology, it became something far more sinister. On the bridge of the starlit dream, Captain Hyanwu stared in horror as the translation appeared. On his failing displays, alien creatures. "This is War Leader Junho of the Terra Destruction Fleet. Submit to interrogation and prepare for processing. We have detected your weakness and are here to claim you."
Captain?
Sensor operator Kailara's photosynthetic patches flickered in panic. "They're surrounding us. Look at the formation. It's a hunting pattern." The human ships had indeed formed a perfect tactical circle around the Valkyrie vessel. But it was meant to protect the civilians inside from any external threats. To the terrified aliens, it looked like a pack of predators surrounding wounded prey. Communications officer, the Jin, frantically worked at her station. "Sir, their weapons are still powered. Energy readings are off the scale. They could turn us into vapor in seconds." Captain Hyanwu's bark-like skin had turned a sickly gray with fear, but he forced himself to respond. His species had survived for millennia through diplomacy and peaceful cooperation, and perhaps these strange aliens could be reasoned with. "Please," he transmitted, his voice shaking with desperation. "We are peaceful researchers from the Velkar Science Collective. We mean no harm to anyone. Our ship is dying, and we need help. We have families waiting for us at home." But the translation systems worked both ways, and the human computers struggled just as much with the Valkyrie language. What reached Admiral Junho's ears was completely different. "Attention. We are holding Valkyrie Science Collective prisoners. Do not attempt rescue, or the hostages will be eliminated. Our ship contains valuable captives, and we demand safe passage." We have separated families as leverage. On the Steel Wind, Commander Young Sik nearly launched his fighters immediately. Admiral confirmed hostile transmission.
Ow.
They're claiming to have prisoners from something called the Valkyrie Science Collective, requesting permission to begin boarding operations. Hold position, Admiral Junho ordered, though his own blood was beginning to boil. Hostage takers were the lowest form of scum in the galaxy, preying on innocent civilians. But something about the situation felt wrong. Sir Captain Soyoung said quietly, studying her tactical readings. That ship has no weapons, no shields, no armor. It's basically a flying greenhouse. How could they have taken hostages? Admiral Junho zoomed in on the alien vessel. The more he looked at it, the more questions arose. The ship's design was completely non-military. All curves and organic shapes, clearly built for research, rather than combat. The energy signatures showed life support systems, scientific equipment, and bioorganic computers, but no weapons of any kind. Maybe they're not the hostage takers, he mused. Maybe they're the hostages. Meanwhile, on the starlit Dream, panic was spreading through the corridors like wildfire. Dr. Sujin abandoned her work on the biocircuits and joined the others on the bridge. Her healing appendages trembling with fear.
Captain, the ships.
Neural network is picking up massive electromagnetic interference from those vessels. Whatever they're powering over there, it's beyond anything in our technological database. Engineer Wonbin crawled out of the maintenance tunnels, his usually calm demeanor replaced by visible terror. Sir, I've been listening to their engine signatures. Those aren't civilian vessels. The harmonic patterns match military-grade fusion reactors. These are warships, Captain, serious ones. Science Officer Minho looked up from his displays, his leaf-like appendages drooping with despair. Captain, I've been analyzing their formation. It's not random. They've positioned themselves to maximize firing angles while minimizing the chance we could escape. They're surrounding us like hunters. But why would they need 12 warships to capture one research vessel? Communications Officer Vijin asked. We don't have anything valuable except our botanical research data. Captain Heianwu stared out at the human fleet through the starlit Dream-S bioorganic viewports. Each human ship was a monument to military engineering, bristling with weapons that could destroy planets. The largest one, the Iron Phoenix, was so massive that it blocked out the stars behind it. Maybe that's exactly what they want, he said grimly. Our research. They might be from a species that destroys worlds, strips them bare. Our knowledge of how to grow life in space could be incredibly valuable to conquerors. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The Valkyrie had spent centuries developing techniques to cultivate plants in the vacuum of space, creating orbital gardens that could feed entire civilizations. In the wrong hands, that knowledge could be used to terraform conquered worlds or create biological weapons. Sir Kailara whispered, They're moving. 3 of their smaller ships are changing position. On the human side, Admiral Junho had ordered a standard reconnaissance maneuver. The destroyer's lightning strike, Thunder's Edge, and Stellar Hammer began a slow patrol around the alien vessel, sensors scanning for hidden threats or additional ships that might be lying in wait. To the Valkyrie, it looked like the predators were circling closer for the kill. They're tightening the noose, Engineer Wanbin said, his voice barely audible. Captain, we need to do something. Maybe if we surrender our research data willingly, they'll let us live. But Captain Hyenwu was staring at the tactical display, his mind racing through the impossible mathematics of their situation. 12 massive warships, enough firepower to crack moons, surrounding one dying research vessel. It made no sense from a military perspective. Unless, he whispered, a terrible thought forming in his mind, unless this isn't about conquest at all. What if they're not here to capture us? What if they're here to study us? The thought sent chills through the bridge crew. There were stories whispered among the peaceful species of the galaxy, of civilizations that treated other life forms as laboratory specimens, species that performed experiments on captured aliens, studying their biology and technology before discarding them. We're specimens, Dr. Sujin breathed. They want to dissect us, study our biotechnology, learn how we grow living ships. Misunderstanding deepened with every passing second. Two species interpreting each other's actions through the lens of their own fears and expectations. The humans saw a potential trap and responded with overwhelming force. The Valkyrie saw that force and assumed the worst possible tensions. Neither side realized that they were creating exactly the kind of dangerous situation they were both trying to avoid. Communications Officer Taman wiped sweat from his forehead. As he stared at the cascading lines of alien code flowing across his screens, for the past 30 minutes, he had been locked in a desperate digital dance with someone on the Valkyrie ship, trying to break through the translation barriers that, returning rescue into potential catastrophe. "Come on," he muttered under his breath, fingers flying across his keyboard. "There has to be a pattern here, across the void on the dying starlit dream." A young Valkyrie researcher named Zilinth was performing the same frantic work. Photosynthetic patches glowed bright green with concentration as she fed linguistic samples into her biocomputer. Trying to decode the alien transmissions that sounded so threatening to her crew, Admiral Tommen called out suddenly, his voice cutting through the tense atmosphere of the Iron Phoenix's bridge. "I'm getting clean signals now. The translation matrix is starting to stabilize." Admiral Junho moved to stand behind the young officer's station. "What are you picking up?" "Sir, they keep repeating the same phrases over and over. Something about peaceful research, botanical studies," and Taman's eyes widened as the computer finished processing the latest transmission. "Sir, they're asking for medical assistance. They say their ship is dying, and they need help." "That doesn't match what we heard before," Captain So-Young said, frowning at her tactical display. "Earlier they were talking about prisoners and hostages." Taman's fingers danced across his console, pulling up the earlier transmissions and running them through the improved translation protocols. What he saw made his blood run cold. "Admiral, I think we have a problem. A big one." The bridge fell, silent as Taman's enhanced translations appeared on the main screen. The earlier message that had sounded like a hostage situation now read completely differently. "Please. We are peaceful researchers from the Valkyrie Science Collective. We mean no harm to anyone. Our ship is dying and we need help. We have families waiting for us at home." By the void, Admiral Junho whispered, the terrible realization washing over him. "We've been treating victims like criminals." "Sir, it gets worse," Taman continued, his voice shaking. "I'm intercepting their internal communications now. They think we're here to destroy them. To them, our rescue fleet looks like an invasion. Force preparing to harvest their technology and experiment on their crew." On the starlit dream, Zilinth was making her own horrifying discoveries. As the translation protocols improved, the human transmissions began to make sense for the first time. What had sounded like threats of destruction now revealed themselves as something entirely different. "Captain Hyenwu," she called out, her voice filled with wonder and terror. "The alien fleet. They came because they heard our distress call." "Captain!" Hyenwu abandoned his position at the command station and rushed to her side. "What do you mean? They're clearly a military force." "Yes, sir. But look at this." Zilinth's fingers traced the bioluminescent displays as she pulled up the decoded transmissions. "Their leader, this Admiral Junho, he's been trying to offer us assistance. Keeps asking about our situation and offering help." Science Officer Minho's leaf-like appendages rustled in confusion. But why would they send 12 massive warships? For a simple rescue operation, the entire Federation Navy doesn't travel with that much firepower. Zilantha's photosynthetic patches flickered as she accessed more of the human database through their open communication channels. What she found there changed everything she thought she knew about the galaxy. "Sir," she whispered, her voice filled with awe and terror according to their records. "They're from something called a Deathworld, a planet so dangerous that everything on it evolved to be a predator or prey." The bridge crew gathered around her station as she pulled up the data files. Images of Earth filled the biodisplays, massive storms that could level cities, predators with claws and fangs, oceans filled with creatures that could swallow ships, whole and skies where lightning could split mountains. "Look at this," Zilinth continued, her voice barely steady. "Their homeworld has active volcanism, massive earthquakes, poisonous atmosphere in some regions, and weather patterns that would kill most species in ours. Everything there is trying to kill everything else. Dr. Sujin stared at the images in horror. How did they survive long enough to develop intelligence? They didn't just survive, Zilinth replied, scrolling through more data. They conquered their world, then took those same survival instincts to the stars, sir. To them, traveling through space without heavy military escort is completely unthinkable. They assume the galaxy is as dangerous as their homeworld. The pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. Captain Heianwu felt his bark-like skin tingling as understanding dawned. You're saying that to them, 12 warships is normal for a rescue operation? Sir. According to their military protocols, this is actually a light escort for unknown space, Zilinth said, her voice filled with disbelief. They have records of rescue missions using entire battle fleets because they expect to fight their way through hostile forces to reach survivors. Engineer Wanbin crawled out of the maintenance tunnel where he had been listening to the conversation. They think the galaxy is full of predators because that's the only kind of universe they know. On the human ships, a similar revelation was taking place. Taman had managed to hack into the Velkari's open databases, and what he found there painted a picture of a species so different from humanity that it seemed impossible they had evolved in the same galaxy. Admiral, he reported, his voice filled with amazement, the Velkari homeworld is a paradise. No predators, no natural disasters, no hostile weather. No, their entire civilization is based on cooperation and mutual aid. They've never had a war. In their recorded history, Admiral Junho studied the alien data flowing across the screens. Images of the Velkari homeworld showed vast gardens stretching across continents, cities grown from living trees, and a species that had developed technology through harmony with nature rather than conquest of it. They don't understand military necessity because they've never needed it, Captain Soyoung realized. To them, our rescue fleet looks like enough firepower to conquer their entire civilization. Because it is, Admiral Junho said grimly. We could glass their homeworld. With this task force, Communications Officer Taman looked up from his console with wide eyes. Sir, I'm reading their internal conversations now. They think we're here to harvest their biotechnology and perform experiments on them. They're preparing to die. Duh. Weight of the misunderstanding crashed down on the human bridge crew. Two species, shaped by completely different evolutionary paths, had encountered each other at the worst possible moment. The humans had arrived expecting pirates and slavers ready for battle. The Velkari had expected gentle Federation rescue ships, and instead found what looked like a fleet of conquest. Admiral, Captain Soyoung said quietly, what do we do now? If we move too aggressively, they might panic and do something desperate. But if we don't help them soon, their ship is going to die. Admiral Junho stared at the tactical display showing the fragile alien vessels surrounded by his war fleet. For the first time in decades of military service, he felt completely out of his depth. All his training had prepared him for battle, for protecting humanity's interests against hostile aliens. None of it had prepared him for this first contact with a species so peaceful that they couldn't even comprehend the concept of military force. Sir, Taman interrupted. I'm getting a direct transmission from their communications officer. She wants to establish a private channel. On the Starlit Dream, Zilinth had made a desperate decision. If both species were going to survive, this encounter, someone had to bridge the gap between two completely different ways of understanding the universe. Captain, she said, turning to Haiyan-Wu, I request permission to speak directly with their communications officer. If we can establish proper translation protocols, maybe we can prevent this situation from becoming a tragedy. Captain Haiyan-Wu looked around his dying bridge, at his terrified crew, at the displays showing 12 human warships powerful enough to destroy worlds. Then he looked at Zilinth, young and brave enough to risk everything on the hope that understanding could triumph over fear. Do it, he said simply, across the void. Two young officers began the delicate work of preventing the galaxy's greatest misunderstanding from becoming its greatest tragedy. Neither species realized it yet, but they were about to learn that the universe was both more dangerous and more wonderful than either had ever imagined. The Deathworlders had come to protect the innocent. just as they always did. The peaceful researchers had called for help, just as they always did. Now they had to learn to see each other not as threats, but as fellow travelers in a galaxy vast enough to hold them both. The moment of understanding between the two species was shattered by the harsh blare of warning klaxons. Captain Soyoung's face drained of color as her tactical displays erupted with new contacts, dropping out of hyperspace like vultures descending on a battlefield. "Admiral!" she shouted over the alarm systems. Multiple hostile vessels emerging from hyperspace. Configuration matches Krek Syndicate raiders, 15 ships, and closing fast. Admiral Junho's scarred face hardened into the expression that had earned him fear across a dozen star systems. The Krek Syndicate was humanity's oldest enemy, a collection of pirates, slavers, and worse, that preyed on the weak and defenseless throughout the galaxy's rim territories. "Battle stations," he commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Like a blade. All ships protect the civilians. I'll show these scum why you don't threaten innocents in our space." Across the human fleet, the transformation was instant and terrifying. The Iron Phoenix and her sister ships went from rescue configuration to full combat deployment in seconds. Weapon ports opened like predatory eyes. Shield generators hummed to full power, and the space around each vessel shimmered with defensive energy fields. On the bridge of the lead Krex raider, Blood Prophet, Captain Scarthok was licking his reptilian lips in anticipation. His scaled hide rippled with excitement as he studied the tactical display showing what appeared to be easy prey: a single damaged alien vessel and a handful of unknown ships. "Look at this gift the Void has given us," he hissed to his crew of cutthroats and murderers. "A research vessel full of scientists and their protectors. We'll strip their technology, sell the survivors as slaves, and be rich beyond imagination." Krex had built their entire civilization on predation. They were creatures of nightmare six-limbed, reptilians, with razor-sharp claws and a complete lack of empathy for other species. For 3 centuries, they had terrorized the galaxy's peaceful civilizations, always careful to avoid species that could fight back effectively. "Captain," his weapons officer gurgled through his breathing apparatus, "the unknown ships are powering weapons. Should we be concerned?" Scarthok's yellow eyes gleamed with malicious amusement. 15 ships against 12? I like those odds. Besides, look at those energy signatures. They're probably some soft Federation patrol force. We'll cut through them like flesh. He had no idea that he was about to encounter humanity's war machine at full deployment. The battle began with shocking suddenness. The Iron Phoenix's main guns spoke first, twin lances of coherent plasma that crossed the void at nearly the speed of light. The beams struck the Krek's heavy cruiser Flesh Render amidships, punching through its armored hull like paper and turning the entire vessel into an expanding cloud of superheated gas and twisted metal. "What in the 9 hells?" Scarthok screamed, as his tactical display showed one of his most powerful ships simply ceased to exist. "Return fire. All ships attack pattern Delta." The humans were already moving. The destroyer Steel Wind launched a spread of guided missiles that moved through space like living things, their advanced AI systems calculating intercept courses and defensive countermeasures in real time. Each missile was a masterpiece of human engineering, fast enough to outrun most fighters, smart enough to adapt to enemy tactics, and powerful enough to crack a battleship's armor. The Krex tried to shoot down the incoming missiles, filling space with laser fire and plasma bursts. But human weapons were designed by a species that had learned warfare in the most hostile environment imaginable. The missiles weaved through the defensive fire like serpents, their trajectory so unpredictable that even advanced targeting computers couldn't track them. When they struck, 6 more Krex ships vanished in brilliant explosions. On the Asterisk Starlit, Dream Asterisk, Captain Hyanwu and his crew pressed against the bioorganic viewports. Watching the battle unfold with a mixture of terror and awe, the human ships moved with deadly precision, each vessel working in perfect coordination with the others, to create a web of destruction that the pirates couldn't escape. "By the great tree," whispered Science Officer Minho, his leaf-like appendages trembling as he watched a human cruiser's point defense systems to cut down an entire squadron of Krex fighters in seconds. "They're not just fighting. Dr. Sujin stared in fascination as the human fleet demonstrated tactics that no peaceful species could have developed. Each ship covered the other's blind spots, creating overlapping fields of fire that turned space itself into a killing ground. When Krek's vessels tried to flank around one human ship, they found themselves flying directly into the weapons range of another. "Look at their formation," Engineer Wanbin said, his voice filled with professional admiration despite his fear. "Every movement is calculated. They're not just superior in firepower, they're superior in everything." The Krek's pirates, meanwhile, were discovering that their usual tactics of overwhelming weak opponents with numbers meant nothing against an enemy that had been forged in the crucible of Deathworld evolution. Captain Scarthok watched in growing horror as his fleet was systematically dismantled by opponents who fought with the cold efficiency of natural predators. "Retreat," he finally screamed, his pride forgotten in the face of annihilation. All ships jumped to hyperspace immediately. Admiral Junho wasn't finished with them. "Commander Youngsik," he called to the captain of the Steel Wind, "disable their hyperspace drives. I want the survivors to carry a message back to their kind." The destroyer's precision weapons reached out across space, sending carefully targeted energy beams that fried the hyperspace generators on the fleeing Krek ships without destroying the vessels themselves. Half the remaining pirates found themselves stranded in normal space, completely at the mercy of the human fleet. "This is Admiral Junho of the Terran Defense Force." His voice boomed across all frequencies. "You came here to prey on innocents. You will leave here with a lesson. Tell your masters that this sector is under human protection. Any ship that threatens civilians in our space will share the fate of your dead." The surviving Krek ships limped away at sublight speed, their crews traumatized by their encounter with human military doctrine. Within hours, word would spread throughout the criminal underworld about the new players in galactic politics, a species so dangerous that they could wipe out an entire pirate fleet without losing a single ship. As the battle ended, Admiral Junho turned his attention back to the starlit dream. His scarred face appeared on the Valkyrius view screen, but now his expression was gentle, almost paternal.
"Captain."
"Hein Wu," he said, his voice carrying none of the terrible authority it had held moments before. "We have repair drones standing by. With your permission, we'll have your ship operational within the hour." What followed was perhaps even more remarkable than the battle itself. Human repair crews, their hands still steady from combat, worked alongside Valkyr scientists to heal the dying research vessel. The humans brought their advanced technology while the Valkyri contributed their knowledge of bioorganic systems, creating a fusion of techniques that neither species could have achieved alone. Communications. Officer Taman found himself working directly with Zilinth to establish permanent translation protocols. Their earlier breakthrough now serving as the foundation for true understanding between their peoples. As they worked, they discovered that despite their vastly different evolutionary paths, both species shared the same fundamental values: curiosity about the universe, care for their families, and a desire to build something better than what they had inherited. Captain Hanwu stood on his repaired bridge, watching human and Valkyrie crew members working together as if they had known each other for years. The sight filled him with a wonder that transcended fear. "They didn't come to conquer us," he said to Minho. "They came because someone was in trouble, and they couldn't bear to let harm befall the innocent." Perhaps that's what makes them truly dangerous, not their weapons, but their compassion. 6 months later, Captain Hyanwu would stand before the Galactic Federation Council as the first Valkyrie ambassador to human space. His report would become one of the most important documents in galactic history, helping peaceful species understand that humanity's fearsome reputation came not from malice, but from their unique perspective on what it meant to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. And perhaps more importantly, humanity would never again have to stand alone against the darkness between the stars in the end. The greatest misunderstanding in galactic history had become the foundation for the greatest alliance the universe had ever seen. The END